Meantime, critics are slamming the Biden administration for begging Saudi Arabia to postpone OPEC supply cuts until after the midterms. And we're learning Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas got an email clearing federal agents of whipping Haitian immigrants hours before he went on television to compare the alleged whipping incident to systemic racism. Republican Texas Congressman Pat Fallon is on the House Oversight and Armed Services Committees. It sounds, Congressman, like if Republicans win back the House, any of these revelations could trigger a pretty wide-ranging investigation.
Well, John, you're exactly right. I serve on the Oversight Committee and Armed Services Committee, and on oversight, this is precisely what we're tasked to do. We have asked Secretary Mayorkas on many occasions where the millions of illegal immigrants are going, where's Joe Biden flying them to, and we don't know. So we're going to look into that. We're going to look into Hunter Biden's laptop. We're going to look into why a cabinet-level secretary lied to the American people about what Border Patrol agents were doing when he knew the truth. This is disgusting, and it's very chilling.
Yeah, for those who might not be familiar with the details of that story, a number of Border Patrol agents were photographed reining their horses. It looked, or the photograph made it appear as though they were whipping the agents. It appears that everybody in the agency knew that that wasn't actually the case, but those agents were pursued, and if I have my facts correct, they were disciplined anyway.
Yeah, John, in fact, the photographer that took the photo said that the photo itself looked like it was out of context, the image that you were seeing. So they knew from the very beginning that this was a false narrative, and yet they went with it anyway because it caters and it feeds the fuel for their currency of division. And it's absolutely obscene. I can't even believe it. And they are trying to get rid of these agents, or the Border Patrol agents, by saying that while they didn't do anything criminal, they violated protocols and administrative violations, and therefore they're trying to terminate them. So we're going to fight very hard to make sure these heroes are kept employed and doing their jobs and protecting us.
Let's talk a little bit about the Durham investigation and the Igor Danchenko case. The Wall Street Journal had a piece from Kimberly Strassel, a very well-respected reporter there. Here's what she had to say, part of it. Partisanship and incompetence aren't crimes, so the FBI isn't in the dock. But Mr. Durham is making the case for the public, and it's as ugly as they come. A lot of partisanship in the FBI these days, it seems.
You know, and this is so incredibly sad, John, because we grew up thinking the FBI was beyond reproach. I mean, that was the one agency you could really trust. There was a lot of faith the American people had in the FBI. Fidelity, bravery, integrity, that's out the window now because they're not working for the American people. They clearly, over the last several years, have been working for the Democratic Party. And it really breaks my heart, and we must address it.
Well, some people say that you have to address it by blowing up the FBI. I don't mean that literally. I just mean essentially getting rid of the agency and rebuilding some kind of federal investigative agency from the ground up. Would you go that far?
I would go as far as to look at the senior leadership and fire them, yes. Because that's what, you know, anytime you try to turn a big company around, they'll tell you that the people that get you in the hole aren't going to get you out of it. So that leadership has got, I firmly believe that the rank and file FBI agents are largely probably doing a hell of a job. But it's their leadership that there's just a cancer in that, and we have to cut the cancer out.
So in terms of, well, Christopher Wray was appointed by President Trump. He's still there, right?
Well, you know what? We know one thing about the midterms, that Joe Biden is still going to be president. The Republicans won't hold the White House after 2022, but we will have a seat at the negotiating table, and we'll have the power of the purse strings coming out of the House as well. So the FBI will, I think, be a little bit more residents, if you will, to continue this along the lines of they're doing right now. But I'll tell you something. If a Republican does win the White House in 2024, I would immediately replace Wray.
Let's talk about the oil situation that we find ourselves in this country. The president went over to beg Saudi Arabia and OPEC to pump more oil, and in fact they said, no, we think we're going to pump less. Then we find out the administration actually begged them to not to enact that curtailment until after the midterm elections. This after the president cut the Keystone Pipeline on day one of his administration. Make some sense of that.
It boggles the mind. It doesn't make any sense. It's just putting America last and not first. So though Biden's administration goes over and asks the Saudis not to cut production, and the Saudis say, well, we're going to cut production by 2%. So then they ask him, well, can you do it at least after November 8th? That's not looking for real solutions. That's just searching for political expediency in an election that you're about to lose. The real solutions aren't begging petty dictators like Venezuela and Saudi Arabia to produce more, but to unleash the American energy sector. And oh, by the way, don't declare absolute total war on them, which this administration has done over the past 2 years.
Yeah, the Keystone Pipeline, the president killed it. It was going to provide millions of barrels of oil to this country and other friendly countries, and somehow the White House is shocked that gas prices are way up.
You know, John, the day one, as you said, he canceled the Keystone XL pipeline. And then the first week he said, you know what, we're not going to issue any more leases for exploration on federal lands and in federal waters. And this is going to be, of course, the result. And then they're, trying to punish the American energy sector by raising fees and such to make it more expensive to get American oil and American energy. But the answer is never to look and beg Venezuela, of all countries, to sit there and say, we will ease sanctions if you promise to talk to the opposition and have fair, honest, and open elections in 2024. We'll let Chevron come down there and get oil from you. We do it cleaner. So if you care about the environment, you should be rooting for American energy and not Venezuelan or Saudi or any other petty tin pot dictator.
The president, on Inauguration Day, raised his hand and swore to uphold the laws of the United States. Well, you're in Texas. Talk for just a second about what's going on our southern border.
Wow. So in April, it was the worst month we'd ever had. 234,000 illegal border crossings, John, which was 1,258% worse than the last April President Trump was in office. Only to be eclipsed in May when there were 241,000 illegal border crossings, which was 930% worse than the last May that President Trump was in office. So we've seen in the last 6 months, when you include the known gotaways, about 1.5 million people crossing the southern border illegally. 107,000 deaths last year alone to opioid overdoses, 80,000 of those fentanyl. And then Kamala Harris, the vice president of the United States, what'd she say, John? The border is secure. That woman is not living on Earth. She's orbiting the planet Neptune, because she's not in this world.
Congressman Pat Fallon of Texas. Congressman, thanks.
Thanks, John. God bless.